A prerequisite to having a buyer trust a salesperson is having the buyer believe the salesperson is sincere and competent. In fact, Stephen Covey, in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, says that in a business-to-business relationship, if a buyer believes that a salesperson is sincere, they'll be willing to talk to them. But only after they believe that they are both sincere and competent will they be willing to share their goals, problems, and needs with that salesperson. And only when the salesperson understands the buyer's goals, problems, and needs can they then help empower them to see a way to do things differently. The 5th core concept of customer-centric selling is take the time to diagnose before you offer a prescription. We find that buyers don't like to be told what they need, but would rather discover that on their own. Sales can be viewed as a hurt and rescue mission. During the diagnosis, sellers help buyers realize shortcomings of their current ways of doing business. The rescue takes place when sellers offer only those parts of their offerings that are needed to address the issues, and the buyers agree. There was a study done a number of years ago with Xerox Corporation that defined what they call the sales performance over time curve. The study showed that when Xerox hired a new salesperson and put them through training, they would see a steady increase in that salesperson's performance for approximately the first 18 months that the person was with the organization. However, at about that 18-month window or time frame, most salespeople hit a wall or a plateau, and their performance would start to drop. If the salesperson was not able to self-correct that performance decline, in many cases their morale will drop off shortly thereafter, and they would leave. The reason for this phenomenon was that as salespeople became experienced with not only their products and services but their marketplace in general, they would stop asking questions and start making statements. Rather than asking the buyer about their situation, they would tell them all the wonderful things that their products and services could do for them. Ironically, they may have been right, but they hadn't earned the trust of buyers when they skipped the diagnosis. The next core concept of customer-centric selling is the only person who can call what you offer a solution is the buyer. And the buyer will only view what you offer as a solution when they understand how you help them achieve their goals, solve their problems, and satisfy their needs. Solution is a misused word in sales and marketing. The ultimate judge of whether a seller offers a solution is the person who has to pay for it. The next core concept of customer-centric selling is that people are best convinced by reasons they themselves discover. One of the things that we'll work on in the workshop is, once you've identified goals and objectives with your prospect, how to lead them through a self-discovery process. The 8th core concept of customer-centric selling is, don't give without getting. It introduces the concept that you'll see throughout the training that we refer to as quid pro quo. The best analogy I'd like to draw when I'm describing the concept of quid pro quo is this. If you've ever been to the circus and seen the trained poodle act, once the poodle jumps through the hoop the first time, that's not the end of the act. Typically what happens is they make it more difficult for the poodles. They add razor wire to the hoop. They set it on fire. It becomes a more and more difficult exercise. In many cases, we believe that salespeople are viewed by prospects like poodles at the circus. When they ask you to do something for them, and you just go ahead and do it without getting anything in return, the next time they ask, that hoop is going to get higher. It's going to be set on fire. There's going to be razor wire put in the middle of it. I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't do things for your prospects, but when you leave the workshop, one of the things I'd like you to ask yourself, and potentially even ask your prospect the next time they ask you to do something for them, is, what's in it for me? And again, this is the concept and the theme that you're going to see multiple times and woven throughout the training that you'll be taking. The ability to utilize a quid pro quo approach speaks volumes about the relationship a seller has established with buyers. The next core concept of customer-centric selling: you can't sell to someone who can't buy. We appreciate the fact that a fair amount of your time will be spent with people who can't buy. The question is, when you spend this time in the buying cycle, is it part of a bottom-up strategy where you talk with several levels who can't say yes, but can say no? We hope you'll employ more of a top-down strategy where you gain early access to people that can buy and then get delegated down to other levels. As we look at who can and cannot buy within the organization, let's start by looking at a traditional organizational chart. Imagine, if you will, an imaginary line that runs through all organizations that we refer to as the power line in the organization. That power line effectively separates the people who cannot buy from the people who can. When we talk to people above the power line, they typically talk in terms of value, whereas below the power line, they're more focused on price. In fact, below the power line, they often view what you do as an expense, whereas above the power line, you're viewed as more of an investment.